Over the past 2 decades, Nepal's economic journey has been one of resilience. Despite frequent and political transition and repeated shocks from natural disasters, the country has made notable progress on social indicators since mid 1990s. Strong gains have been achieved in reducing extreme poverty and improving life expectancy, child mortality, and internet penetration. However, income levels remain low relative to regional peers, and together with weak governance, inequality, and limited job opportunities, have contributed to public dissatisfaction and outward migration. Today, Nepal finds itself at an inflection point. The recent political transition and the formation of a majority government offer a rare opportunity to move forward with deeper and more sustained structural reforms. This period of relative political stability can provide a strong foundation for accelerating reforms and unlocking the country's long-term growth potential. In this context, let me first begin by outlining the work that IMF has been doing, including the recently completed Extended Credit Facility Program with the Nepal government, before delving into broader policy issues. As most of you know, IMF ECF arrangement with Nepal was approved in early 2022 and amid acute post-pandemic stress. The objective of the program was to safeguard macro-financial stability, rebuild buffers, and protect the vulnerable. With the recent successful completion of the seventh and final review, Nepal has navigated a challenging period marked by multiple shocks, and the program has delivered on a central objective of safeguarding macroeconomic stability and rebuilding buffers. Since early 2022, inflation has declined markedly while external buffers have strengthened significantly. Gross international reserves, as we all know, has increased to over 1 year of prospective imports, while primary deficit, which used to be 4.5% of GDP in 2022, has reduced to 0.7% of GDP last year. This has kept public debt at a low risk of debt distress. At the same time, the structural reforms implemented under the program have strengthened institutional and improved policy making. Monetary operations have been modernized through an operational interest rate corridor and clear signaling. Financial sector oversight has improved with the rollout of supervisory information system and completion of the loan portfolio review. Fiscal framework and transparency are advanced with the domestic revenue mobilization strategy and publication of the fiscal risk statement and tax expenditure report. In addition, progress has been made in strengthening governance through upgrade of the anti-money laundering framework, amendment to the NRB Act, and improved accountability of public enterprises. However, as highlighted during the conference, important gaps remain. In fostering inclusive and durable growth, addressing persistent financial sector vulnerabilities, and advancing deeper institutional reform to support job creation. The financial system remains under stress with serious asset quality concerns, while both revenue and capital expenditure have fallen short of budget targets. Moreover, governance weakness has interacted with demographic pressures and limited domestic opportunities, resulting in low social trust, underinvestment, and subdued economic potential. Weak job creation and slow structural transformation have constrained the economy's capacity to absorb new entrants productively. Outward migration and remittances dependence have emerged as a key coping mechanism, supporting household incomes and macroeconomic stability, but also reducing incentive for domestic structural adjustment and pressure for reforms. The resulting low trust, low investment equilibrium with over-reliance on external income has limited the realization of Nepal's demographic dividend and dampened medium-term growth potential. So what needs to be done? Preserving macroeconomic stability while reigniting growth is crucial. The near-term policy mix should focus on accelerating recovery by boosting domestic demand and restoring investors' confidence through timely capital spending. Close coordination across fiscal, monetary, and financial sector policies will be essential to strengthen the economy and lay the foundation for a durable recovery. In this regard, let me highlight 4 priorities that are crucial for Nepal. First, fiscal policy must play a central role in supporting development. The expansionary fiscal stance announced in the recent budget is appropriate in a given context, given economic slack and downside risks to growth, including spillover from global developments. However, further efforts are needed to strengthen domestic revenue mobilization and enhance spending efficiency. This will be essential to create fiscal space for development while preserving sustainability. Lifting bottlenecks in capital expenditure execution is a high priority, not only to support near-term demand, but also to raise medium-term growth. At the same time, the social safety net can be strengthened through better targeted and transparent measures. Second, strengthening the financial sector remains essential. Rising financial sector vulnerability warrant increased vigilance. The NRB has completed the loan portfolio review of large 10 commercial banks and should now instruct banks to improve on the shortcomings in credit practices identified in the LPR. NRB should also initiate implementation of the post-LPR roadmap to ensure that banks take upfront loss recognition through any needed reclassification of asset into adverse category. It is also essential to expand the application of the loan portfolio review diagnostic approach to remaining 10 commercial banks. The NRB should also strengthen its risk-based supervision. Measures to deal with problematic savings and credit corporation should be prioritized. Number 3, and perhaps the most importantly, governance reform must remain at the center of Nepal's development strategy. Across all discussions at this conference, a consistent theme has emerged. Governance challenges continue to constrain investment, productivity, and growth. In this regard, we believe that sustained progress on structural reforms anchored in stronger governance, the key word is stronger governance, remain essential to foster more inclusive growth with job opportunities. Our internal analysis shows that implementing governance reform to raise public investment efficiency, strengthen VAT collection, and reducing distortion for private investment could boost real GDP by almost 13% over 10 years. This is a significant number and significant boost to Nepal's economy. Furthermore, these reforms combined could also help stimulate private investment and while reducing consumption inequality by creating employment and fiscal space for social transfers and improving public debt dynamics. To continue addressing governance gap and rebuilding social trust, the authorities have embarked on IMF's governance and corruption diagnostic. We are working with the Nepal government on conducting this governance and corruption diagnostic. The idea is that, and the objective of the GCD is to design macro-critical governance weakness, to identify macro-critical governance weaknesses in institutions, policies, and practices that can undermine economic performance, fiscal sustainability, business and investment climate, and public trust. The GCD will provide concrete, well-sequenced, prioritized reform recommendations to the government in addressing corruption risk and that are binding constraint on Nepal's economic development. And finally, number 4, which is very important for Nepal, is advancing broader structural reforms to reduce high business cost. Recommendation from the High-Level Economic Reform Advisory Commission last year provides a roadmap to reduce high business costs, strengthening institutional capacity, and enhance financial integrity. These efforts can be further supported by greater digitalization of public administration, streamlined procurement, and improved inter-government coordination, and thus helping lower transaction costs and enhancing transparency. Addressing persistently high youth unemployment will require parallel investment in human capital, private sector development, and job creation in strategic sector. Adapting to and adopting emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence is vital to further boost productivity and expand employment opportunities. Given Nepal's high exposure to natural disasters, targeted investment in disaster preparedness such as food security, early warning mechanism, and climate resilient infrastructure can help mitigate vulnerabilities and support economic resilience and medium-term growth. Finally, while we conclude the first session of the Samvad on unlocking Nepal's economic potential, Reform 2.0, it is worth reflecting on what we have achieved over the past 2 days. The discussion has been insightful, candid, and forward-looking. They have helped to clarify both the challenges facing Nepal's economy and the policy priorities needed to address them. Importantly, they have demonstrated a growing consensus on the importance of sustained structural reforms. Nepal today benefits from a position of relative strength, a stable macroeconomic environment, a robust external buffers, a clear reform agenda. The task ahead is to translate this into sustained implementation. Success will depend not only on sound policies, but also on strong institutions, effective coordination, and continued commitment to reforms.